angels smoking cigarettes on rooftops in fishnets in the morning with the moon still glowing. And here comes Jesus in an Astro van rolling down the strip again. He's stoned while Jerry plays. He said life ain't ever what it seems. These dreams are more than paper things. And it's alright mama, you're afraid I'll be poor along the way, but I don't wanna see those tears again. You know Jesus drives an Astro van.
Hello, thank you for tuning in. This is episode 15 of the podcast, and in this episode, please don't mind if you hear a dog in the background. I have a German Shepherd with me right now, but in this episode, I want to just say things that are on my mind. I've been training a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu lately. Like I have that. I feel addicted to the sport. You know, I go just about every day, and a lot of times I'll go twice a day. Like it takes a toll on your body, and I've definitely had, struggled with some injuries from it in the past. But it's just so damn fun. You know, it's I'm so happy that I found it. I think that there's several things that I believe that I have found that can thoroughly, not heal people, but just because that sounds like pretentious and faggoty, but there's just several things that I have found that just optimize your life in just a completely total way, in a way that's not just one dimensional, in a way that really affects everything else. And jiu-jitsu is definitely one of those things. I would say jiu-jitsu is one of them. Meditation is definitely one of them. Meditation is definitely something that I have found to be one of those kind of meta skills that affects everything else in your life, including jiu-jitsu. So they kind of feed off of each other. If you have the discipline to go to jiu-jitsu, you have the discipline to sit down maybe in a room. Not always, but a lot of people can probably compartmentalize. I think that maybe because I've done but because I've done a decent amount of psychedelics, and in the grand scheme of things, they were very recent, just all done within the past 2 years. But having those experiences with psychedelics, I think that kind of takes away that compartmentalization a little bit, things, there's less boundaries between things, which, I don't know, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I think that I definitely appreciate what I've gotten from psychedelics. I've gotten the ability to kind of see, I've gotten the ability to see how things affect each other and how nothing is really separate. Everything sort of all is working in this interconnected sort of web. I see that with technology. I see that with, everything I do, just as far as habits and skills and, anything. I think it really wakes you up to the fact that you are an individual. You are this thing that is concrete and separate from everything else, but that separation isn't nearly as solid as you might have otherwise accepted or thought before the psychedelic experiences. I feel psychedelics really, because they've done studies on that where people who do psychedelics, it takes down their trait openness in the Big Five personality scale. Openness goes up like a few percentiles, and a few percentiles for a test like that is a pretty big marker for change. So I don't know, I think it's good for creativity. It's good to it makes me kind of think about things in just meta ways. If meta makes any fucking sense, I think about, okay, I'll be practicing archery, for example, and I'll be practicing archery, and I'll be thinking while doing archery, this is, everything I'm doing right here is kind of like a metaphor for everything else in my life. I have this target that I'm aiming at, that I'm trying to hit, and I perform better when I put my complete and utter focus and attention into it. When I complete and utter focus and attention into it, my body is more in tune with the location of the target in space, and I'm able to, my muscles are more just like, my whole nervous system is more in tune with the physical, spatial, location of the target when I put my complete and utter focus into it. And to me, it's such a blatant, if metaphor is the right word, for everything else in your life. Anything else I'm trying to achieve, I learn how to better handle myself in everything else that I do by practicing one or two skills. Like, just by practicing one skill, during that skill, I'm forming connections with just about it feels like I'm forming connections with just about every other part of my brain. It's, and I don't know how much of that is just normal, because maybe it is normal. Maybe psychedelics don't affect that. Maybe everybody experiences that, but I definitely think psychedelics open your mind to the pure reality of that. The fact that you can speculate, hey, I think this, it could really help me here, and that could really help me here. But psychedelics expose you to the fact that, hey, like, this affects this, and what you're doing here is affecting this, and everything else that you can possibly conceive of, it's affecting. That's something that comes out of the Jordan Peterson philosophy, and I believe a lot of probably Taoists and Buddhists and whatever, that what you do, it matters. What you do, it sort of bubbles out. If you have 1,000 people that in your life, then I believe the quote is, then you're like, you're 2 people away from 1 million, and you're 5 people away from 1 billion, something like that. I don't know. But literally everything you do matters. Everything you do bubbles outward. If you have a negative interaction with somebody, that person is going to be brought down. And when they're brought down, they're going to interact in that manner towards everybody else. And it doesn't, it probably dissipates to some extent, or it grows. It hits some people, and it gives some people an outlet to express their issues, or the other way. If you're positive and you're happy and you smile at people in an authentic way, and not a very inauthentic, manipulative way, I feel that bubbles outward too. And when that bubbles outward too, it can also, I think it affects everything. Like I said, I don't think anything is separate, but I don't know. I think that there's the potential that people can get too lost in that space. They can get too lost in the psychedelic space, where because I've known people that have done psychedelics, and I particularly, like, one person in particular, but a few people, like that circle of friends, some people who they do psychedelics all the time, particularly LSD. And I'll talk about what I think about LSD in a minute, but they'll do things like LSD, and the boundaries between things and just their interpretation a lot of times of the experience, when they just do it all the time, is just, I think it's very diluted. I think that LSD, I've had great times on LSD. I've had great experiences. I've learned a lot from LSD, and more than anything, LSD teaches you that fucking, this is a wacky show we're all in. We're in a wacky chain of events right now, and everything just LSD. Like, last time I did, I felt like everything was just blending together. Like, my whole brain was just like blending things together, and I don't know how much of that is good. I think mushrooms is definitely a more intelligent. It has an intelligence to it, which is interesting. LSD lets you go into yourself a lot more, but mushrooms definitely makes you feel like there's a presence, like there's something there. There was one trip I had on mushrooms where I was doing the Terrence McKenna method, where I was just laying in bed in silent darkness. And I remember that in the first half of the trip, it was amazing. It was blissful. I had done quite a bit for me. I haven't done the heroic dose, but it was like 2.5 grams of some very potent penis envy mushrooms. And like I said, the first half of the trip was amazing. It was awesome. I wasn't myself for a period of time. I had kind of just dissolved, and I don't really remember what was going on in that period that much. I wasn't sleeping, but I had just kind of faded out into everything. And I remember thinking at one point, like, everything was just magical and musical. Everything was musical. I remember feeling that, like, everything was just moving in this very beautiful and crisp, and just, everything was just hitting the right notes, both internally and, visually. And I remember the feeling of there being an other there. And I remember the feeling like, okay, there's something here. There's something communicating with me somehow. And like I said, I can't describe it. I can't put words on it. I can't box it in, because the moment you try to box it in, it escapes from you. But I remember, like, there's occasionally things that come through that you could just very clearly identify with a few very short, concise words. But I remember the statement that came through was, "There's work to be done." I remember that very vividly. I remember thinking, no one was saying to me there was work to be done, but I remember getting this overwhelming feeling. And then I remember telling myself, like, there's work to be done. And I didn't, what does that mean? What does it mean there's work to be done? It means that it really taught me that there's more to fucking life. And then right after that, I don't know how much of this was just me making the mistake of like looking at my phone, which is, I have found, not a good thing to do while tripping. But I had looked at my phone, I looked at the time, and I remember thinking, like, how long have I been tripping? And then, if you've ever tripped before, that is the worst thing to think about while tripping. And then I went down a spiral, and I went on the other end of the spectrum. I went to fucking hell. I was in heaven in the first half and hell in the second half. And I remember just feeling like I'd gone insane. Like, I remember, this is what insanity is like. This is what a neurotic experience is like. And around that time, I was very afraid that I had, mental issues. I was afraid that I was, like, mentally not stable. And it probably was true to some extent. The fact that, I had that worry was probably, like, it was definitely an indication of something. But the mushrooms was like, okay, that's what you're afraid of? Like, okay, here, let's show you what that's like. And I went in it, and man, like, I could just feel like, fuck, I've done it. Like, I've done it. And you feel the whole weight of the universe kind of coming down on you. And it's very, it was a hard experience. It was a hard experience for days afterwards. I remember thinking, like, man, the first part was really good. The second part was really bad. And then I was kind of waking up from the experience a little bit and thinking, like, fuck, like, am I insane? Like, am I done? And I wasn't. I'm fine now. But it was an amazing experience, because I don't think I think it's kind of stupid and new agey to think, oh, there's no such thing as a bad trip. Every trip is just a challenging trip, blah, blah, blah. I believe Rick Strassman had kind of called that out. And I think that's true. But I also am grateful that I had that experience, that I had that experience of knowing what the neurotic feels. And it might not be exactly what a neurotic person wandering the street feels, but it's what it felt like. I felt like I was a neurotic person wandering the street who was just gonzo. Like, but that experience, I feel, had given me some compassion for that state of being, and understand that that's a place that you can go to. And it's, I don't know, it's crazy how far the mind can go in either direction, how meaningful and happy and joyous you can be on one end of the spectrum in the most and utter blissful and godlike way, and then on the other end of the spectrum just be in a complete and utter pit. Like, when I understand why they talk about hell as this pit, because you feel like you're underground, you feel like I said, you feel like the weight of the universe is on you. And I really wonder how much of the Bible was influenced by psychedelics. And this is something I want to read a few books on and try to do some research on, because I'm probably just talking out of my ass right now. But I understand the stories more. I'm not saying I completely grasp them. I'm not this super wise dude, but I grasp them a little bit better when they talk about heaven, they talk about hell, and they talk about the light and Jesus and Christ and all this stuff. I understand it in a way that I didn't understand before I had ever tried psychedelics. I understand it in a much more nuanced way, where, Jonah being in the belly of the whale. Okay, he's in the belly of a whale. What is that like? Well, I know that during that trip where I felt like the whole weight of the universe was on me, I could, belly of a whale. That's a pretty good metaphor for what I was experiencing. That's what it felt like. I was in this thing that was just grinding me up and getting ready to just consume me. And that's what it is too. Is like, you're in this space, you're in this 3D space where you maneuver along this plane, and you're not making it out of this thing alive. Nobody's getting out of this thing alive. Everybody's going to die. Everybody's going to get to a point where it kind of fades away and comes to an end. And I've been thinking about that a lot more lately too, is like the reality of dying. Like, there's a point in time where everything fades away, where everything's gone. You had your whole life, you lived your whole life, you had all these experiences, you met all these people, you did all these things, and now it's like time to say goodbye. And I've been thinking about a lot lately, because I have a grandmother that I believe is kind of on that state of like passing away soon. And it really just makes it more real that this is a person who lived their whole life. And I don't even mean it in a very sad way, because it doesn't make me that sad. It doesn't make me indifferent. It doesn't make me happy, but it's a different feeling. I have a respect for it. It gives me a respect for the process, that there is this process where you go through everything, and then at the end, it's time to give it all back. I don't know. I think that's something that really should be at the forefront of a lot more people's mind, because I think that it could happen at any moment. It could happen anywhere at any time. Like, get into a car accident, you fucking get a heart attack or cancer or whatever, and there's obviously those things aren't just random. There's a lot of lifestyle decisions you make that determine those things. But the gist, I was in an airplane for the first time, and I remember they got some like really rough turbulence, and even the people that flew regularly was like, holy shit, this is a lot of turbulence. And the plane felt like it was dropping, and I was like, my heart just like sank. I was like, oh no, like this is it. And so that like dispelled any fucking bloated ego sort of superstition I had about like me somehow being kind of not afraid of death, because I'm certainly afraid of death. That experience proves it. But I don't know, it's something that I think that should be on the forefront of more people's minds, to think that, hey, this is something that is very temporary, and it's going to go away, and eventually you're going to have to give everything back. So what do you want to do with this thing? Because you are going to give it back. You're not in this thing forever. You're not going to be able to hoard your wealth forever. You're not going to be able to, you're not going to be able to manipulate people forever. You're not going to be able to do like the comfortable thing, forever. You're going to have a certain amount of time on this earth, and you're not going to be getting ahead. You're not going to be falling back. You're just going to be fading away. There's not going to be anything you can do about it. You can't build up your savings account. You can't buy a house. You can't, get security. You can't do anything, because the time is eventually going to run out. Like, it's going to go, and it's going to be something that is just inevitable. And technology is more and more so kind of extending that due date that we all have. But I don't know. When I think about it, when I think about the fact that I have really not that much time on this earth, and really try to put myself in that mind space where I'm thinking about it very hard, your reaction from that could either be like two things. It could either be, man, what a fucking shitty setup this is, that we're here for a little bit, we make some friends, and then we have to give it all away, and like everything's over, like it's just done, like. And people get resentful of that, I feel, and some people, I think, compensate by trying to adopt belief systems where they say, "Oh, you'll live forever and ever in this paradise land." Blah blah blah. Like, I think that's so stupid. Like, I think that's so dumb. I don't. I respect people's religion. I respect Christianity. I respect all these different belief systems, but I really don't fucking think there could be an afterlife in some way, but not in a way where we're all just walking around in the clouds and like singing Kumbaya with each other. I don't think that's a possibility. Maybe in some like psychedelic space we return home and then jump back in the game for a few times. Maybe that's it. I don't know. That could be it. But I don't think it. I think a lot of times it is just a comforting thing to think, oh, well, I'll live on in the same state that I'm in now forever, and then when all my family and friends die, that they'll be there too, and then I'll never have to give anything up. But I think, like, I think that's, I don't know. I think that's I don't think it's such a stupid idea, because, like I said, I don't know. They could be exactly that, but you can take that approach where you get resentful from it. You could try to overcompensate with some sort of very literal belief system, or you could just sit there and fucking accept it, try to accept it. I don't know how to accept it. It's not something that, I'm certainly not wise enough to be able to do it at my age. I don't know if anybody's able to do it completely, to be able to accept their whatever their fate, or whatever the fact that they're going to die. But it really gets you thinking. It gets you thinking, hey, well, why am I worrying about what this person is saying right now when I have a million other things I would like to do in this life and accomplish and, kind of leave for myself? Why am I putting my energy into these things? And it really allows you to analyze, kind of like how you have a stock portfolio. If any of you are into finance or investing, you have a portfolio of, well, you have a certain amount of money in your large cap stocks, and then your small cap stocks, and then your penny stocks, and whatever. But it makes you think, like, okay, you have a certain amount of time invested in these very meaningful things, and then you have an amount of time that's invested in these things that, they occupy your time, but they don't really do you that much good. And then you have, a significant amount of time that's invested in these things that not only are they not really good for you, but they're actively bringing you down and preventing you from being able to see the whole picture of what it is that you are experiencing in this moment. And I think that's maybe what contemplating death does for you. I think that the Stoic belief system philosophy is probably pretty close on that mark. But as I was saying earlier, man, when you do psychedelics and you read the Bible, something is fucking there. So I think they had to be tripping. I think that it was definitely influenced. Alice in Wonderland, I need to do some more research into that. Like, who the fuck what kind of mushroom cult was that dude? And I just resaw it. Like, that dude was definitely in some fucking orgy mushroom cult thingy. But anyways, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I'm going to keep doing these, try to bring these to you weekly and get this out there and grow this thing, because this is the end goal. But yeah, love you, peace out.
And in my heart there's a Holy Ghost writhing on the floor from an overdose. You know the best ones never come down. So if I love at the tip of my toes, reaching out for the great unknown, every addict has illusions. That life ain't ever what it seems. These dreams are more than paper thieves. And it's alright, mama, you're afraid I'll be poor along the way, but I don't wanna see those tears again. You know Jesus drives an Astro van. Yes, he does. He said, ooh. It's true. Yeah. When I see those angels on the roof, I'll know I've made it. When my doobie smoking, Jesus puts my name upon his guest list. Says, son, you're famous in heaven. Maybe you're famous in heaven. And maybe there is no heaven. And maybe we're all alone together now. And I don't want to see those tears again. You know Jesus drives an Astro van. Again, you know Jesus drives an Astro van.